I um I want to thank Unleash for inviting me to be here with you tonight. It's a gift because it's very humbling to see the work that you're doing and the plans that you're making towards achieving a more whole and healthy and complete society. I'm going to talk about lasting peace, its relationship to the SDGs, because peace, I believe, is a foundational basis for all of those things, for us as human beings to be able to come together and to be able to effectuate change and to live our lives as the best we can. Lasting peace often sounds like objectives of a big magnitude that only politicians and soldiers and diplomats and big institutions can hope to achieve. But I believe the contrary. I believe that they also depend on a myriad of actions and initiatives from the grassroots. One thing that's important is to look for needs in the world around us. In all of our communities, we're going to be faced with many, many different challenges. It's up to each of us to search for those things that we can be doing to make our communities better, whether that's supporting better schools or advocating for more recycling or volunteering or sewage or exercise. Building peace in our lives can also be very simple. It can be doing small things that make someone's day better. Mother Teresa said, "We shall never know all the good that we can cause by a simple smile." Smile at a stranger today. Tell a friend that you can help them today. These things also make a very big difference. In the end, I think that we should realize that the small things that we do in our own lives, in our communities, are part of a much bigger effort. So if you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, there are 17 very different objectives that the international community has set out for itself. We realize that they're ultimately there to help us build a world of peace where everyone is included. So anytime you're on your own and you do this in your own life, when you do something to make someone else's life better or make someone feel included, you're a part of the mission of the SDGs. This applies to my personal path. Today I conduct humanitarian missions in 3 continents, and I'm UNESCO Special Envoy for Peace and Reconciliation. This is an international role that I take very seriously. But this role actually started very locally for me. Some of my earliest memories are of the Watts riots. They happened about 2 miles from my home. And as I got older, gangs became a stronger and stronger presence in my neighborhood. I was in South Central for the birth of the Bloods and the Crips, very notorious gangs. So many of the kids that I knew back home got drawn into these lives of gangs, of drugs, of violence. And I saw how this robbed them of their future, and for some of them, robbed them of their lives. My first understanding of war and what it can do to a human being was when my cousin came back home from Vietnam. He slept in the room with me, and he became a ghost of his former self, a shell of his previous self. And I realized that he would never be what he was again. That experience tipped me towards action in my encounter with former child soldiers. I was in Uganda a little over 10 years ago. I was doing Last King. And some of the people I met were former child soldiers. And I saw in their struggles the same demons that some of the kids that I knew growing up were struggling with. I saw the same emptiness in them that I saw in my cousin when he came back from war. So the more I worked with these former child soldiers, the more I saw a need everywhere I looked. These children didn't just need to be taken out of armed groups. They needed to have home. They needed to have food. They needed school, community, and hope. Hope that they'll be able to get jobs. Hope that they'll be able to take care of themselves, their family, those they love. So once you start seeing these needs, then you just can't stop. That led me outside of Uganda into South Sudan, where we started to work, and then we moved into Mexico, and then we were also working in Los Angeles right now, in the United States. But I believe that every person, everywhere, can do something for peace, which I believe lays on the foundation again of what the SDGs are about. This is the premise of my foundation, Whitaker Peace and Development Initiative. My idea is that vulnerable communities impacted by conflict can regain resilience if we empower local young people as peacemakers and entrepreneurs. The story of Nkongo. He is one of the youth leaders that I work with, and he will give you an idea of our work. Nkongo established a small business in the county with our help. The business started in April. They quickly made a profit. In the meanwhile, Nkongo and his group had learned that there were two communities that had been in conflict for 2 years and would not be able to even talk to each other. They wouldn't be able to communicate, but they were on the borders of each other. So our group of entrepreneurs decided to take matters in their own hands. They took a piece of their profit and they fueled and they paid for a soccer tournament between the youth of these two encampments. And no, they weren't able to solve everything, but they were able to open up a door and a channel for discussion and dialogue, which with work will continue to move them forwards. They invested in peace at their own initiative. This is a perfect example of peace and what it does in local initiatives. These young people receive support from us in an international NGO, but in the end, it was in their direct environment that they found a seed of peace that they could nurture and hopefully grow. I think someone said earlier how you have the capacity to do amazing things. Throughout history, there have been people like yourselves who have made a decision to move something forward, made a decision to make a change. And I, too, want to be able to say to you, you can make a difference. All these amazing, powerful ideas that I'm hearing, you can change the tapestry of the world. You can create the world that you want to live in. You can create a sustainable future for all of us. You can create peace. You can create peace. You can create peace. Thank you for indulging me tonight.
Forrest Whitaker, everyone. Thank you.
We have a few minutes to chat with you, Forrest.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank
That
you.
was fantastic. So inspirational.
Forrest, I may kick things off. You've been all around Africa, engaging both because of films. You were in Uganda, playing Idi Amin. You were in Wakanda. You recently starred as Desmond Tutu. You've been in South Africa, and your charity is also working a lot in Africa as well. I'm curious, and I think this goes to a theme in Black Panther. You're an African American. You talked a lot about growing up in some of those communities. What is it like engaging with Africa for you?
So many different, I've been to about 8 countries so far. I think they're all different for me. Every experience has been different. The people are so different. I think the first time was really powerful because when I went to Uganda for the first time, I was lucky because I had been tasked to try to understand what it was like to be African, more specifically to be Ugandan, and more specifically to even be Kakwa. So I was learning about the people, the culture, trying to understand the social norms. I was trying to learn the language, trying to feel the place. And so that was interesting, and I got to see a lot of things. I think when I was in Nigeria, I was in Bayelsa State, so I got to look at and try to understand some of the conflicts that were going on within the area. At the same time, I was able to visit the tribe that I'm genetically connected to, the Igbo tribe.
Oh, wow.
So that was very
Ooh,
powerful.
a couple of them here.
When I was in South Africa, it was there's so many different lessons about peace, but understanding and working with Nelson Mandela and his organization and Desmond Tutu have been able to study those things, and that was really powerful, as well as going inside of the townships like Kaielisha, which they referenced, and doing some mediations and stuff with the community while it was going on. So just trying to learn and to understand so many different places that we could talk about.
Indeed. So after winning your Oscar, you were inspired to make that moment mean something more, and you started the Whitaker Peace Development Initiative, working in 4 countries, Uganda being one of them. So you've been working there for quite a while now. How do you think things have changed since when you first started to now?
In Uganda?
Yeah.
Well, it's quite different. I mean, I was more focused, I guess, towards the north of Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
At the time when I was first there, the Lord's Resistance Army was still an active force with Joseph Kony. So there was a lot of IDP camps that were going on, internally displaced camps, with people who were in those. And the road, the infrastructures were all really gone, at that time. You could see a marked difference now when you go into Gulu and you see this burgeoning city and stuff.
Yeah.
And the IDP camps now, unfortunately, have been replaced because there's like about 1 million South Sudanese who've moved into Uganda because of the conflict that's going on in South Sudan. So it was a replacement, so that was a change and to try to understand and stuff. But
you see progress.
there's a lot of progress happening. It's changed. You were talking about moving from places where they couldn't get electricity because of conflicts and different things. And now, like I say, there's like a burgeoning city and stuff.
You talked about the work you've been doing in peace and the particular form of peace that's emerging in Africa. I mean, if you look at the Rwandan conflict, deep genocide, and then South Africa, huge racial segregation. But the form of justice was not retributive, it was restorative. What is your sense of that? Is restorative justice working, and is it working for all?
I mean, I think it's working in different depending on the context. It works stronger. I think what happened during in '96 when they were doing the reconciliation trials in South Africa, they were able with this mechanism to be able to keep the country intact. I think there's the question of economic. Economic compensation that perhaps didn't fall into place the way some had hoped. But that was working. Rwanda is like a really big success story in a lot of different ways. And this whole notion of being able to be acknowledged and recognized for the things that have happened towards you, to be able to release that is very important. And you'll find that when it's not released, communities are waiting for these things to come out, these actions to come out that could be very violent.
Indeed. Now, what I want to know, Forrest, is I'm very curious. What do they eat in Wakanda? We never saw them eating in the film.
I should know matoke. I should know. I don't know. Something good though.
Something good though. So let's talk about your work with the UN. So in 2016, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon selected you as one of 17 people as high-profile individuals to help achieve the SDGs. Do you think the world is sufficiently aware of the SDGs? And if not, how can we engage more people? Obviously, the 1,000 young talents that are here today are here for that very reason.
I mean, it's very powerful. I think this is a great force to be able to bring the word out. I don't think that the public or private citizens are really aware of the SDGs in that way. I don't think they were aware of the MDGs when that was going on as well. So we have to look at the fabric of trying to publicize the SDGs, and I think frame them so that people can understand that these are just a listing of needs that the planet needs in order to be able to be whole and to be healed. And people need to be able to look at and understand that all of them are interconnected with each other, and that what's happening here is also happening there in a different way. So we have to come together with that. We'll see if Global Citizen will bring out some more voices about it, if these individuals here will continue to do so, if the UN pushes more forward.
Yeah, Project Everyone, there are a few.
Yeah.
It's something that, in a way, you've done. If you look at Black Panther was a film that I think has really caused a change in perception. Why did that film resonate so much?
mean, it certainly changed the narrative. I mean, certainly people of African descent and people of color were able to feel empowered by the film. I think the film is quite universal in its themes, though it's also talking about making sure that we take care of each other.
Yeah.
It's
And
the
the planet.
overriding theme in the end, and I think one of the themes that happens with Killmonger and is about care and how we have to make sure that those who are struggling and suffering are taken care of as well. There's so many different thematics inside of the film that Ryan did. We could talk about that for a whole day.
For
Do you think we could encourage Marvel to make a superhero film around the SDGs?
Oh, wouldn't that be good?
Would you like to see that?
Well,
You'll get an audience of 1,000 at least.
well, you have your production company. Perhaps that's your next project after your future project.
Okay. Maybe.
Maybe. So what I'd like to know from you, we obviously know we have 1,000 of our young talents. You saw the response that you had as you walked on stage. Many of them are inspired by you and the work that you've done. What is the one thing you would say we should all do in our own personal lives to better engage with the SDGs and make the SDGs a reality in our own lives?
I mean, I think there was some great talk about the environment that was going on, but I think ultimately at the core of it, we have to recognize that we're our brother's keeper. And we have to recognize that all these things that are going on in other places also affect us, and by helping those things, we're able to create the world that we want. It's a simple thing. It's not, we can analyze all of the different SDGs, but in the core of it, it's about care for each other, about making sure that people's needs are met so that we can have more inclusive society. And if we do that, if we just keep that in mind, if I put myself in their shoes, what would I do? Then I think we'll be able to figure out and move through these SDGs and make them realities.
Fantastic.
Fantastic. We had Jose Ramos Horta here earlier, and so it is incredible to have both a Nobel Peace Prize winner and an envoy for peace. And we do have a very important event coming up in a few days and I asked him this question. We have two world leaders about to discuss hopefully something that will lead to lasting peace. Do you have any advice or any reflections on the upcoming Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un meeting? Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's a big one. Yeah.
Do you have any advice in general for Trump, perhaps?
I mean, the advice I would give, I'm not sure everyone will take. Which again, it's about listening, and it's about looking at how we can make sure, looking at the SDGs, how maybe we can make sure that both of us have the right to live complete and full lives.
Yes.
I don't think trying to complicate it right now is not the way to do it.
Wonderful. Now, Forrest, you have so many requests. What made you say yes to Unleash?
I mean, I think that the youth are the movement of today and tomorrow, so I'm always here to be able to deal with that. As you say, you're talking about nuclear proliferation and stuff, and these youths are thinking about how to shift the planet, and I think it's important to be able to support that in every way I can. So.
Terrific, terrific, and
Yes.
thank you. Forrest, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have a busy schedule, so thank you for being
And you're
with
going to
us
stick
today.
around for a bit longer.
Yeah, I'm going right there.
Right there. He's right there. Forrest Whitaker, everybody. Thank you.